Welcome, everybody, to the Slowtwitch podcast. I am Eric Wynn, along with our extended host, Ryan Heisler. This is episode 11, depending on who you're asking, but it's episode 11.
I mean, we could have gone to 12, but I guess we're just making 11 as loud as we can. So,
yeah, that's true. Yeah,
but
we have an amazing guest today, Ryan, don't we?
Yes, we do. The one, the only, and this is actually the rare time where we can go with man, myth, and legend all in one. But we have Sean Conway here joining us. Just we're super, super excited to have you on the program. So welcome.
Thank you. Thank you very much for having me from sunny Wales for the first time in a while.
Sean, you said it was hot there today.
Yeah, it's 25 degrees Celsius, which is probably, 90 Fahrenheit, which is really hot.
I don't know. I'm just your typical American that can't do that math in my head.
Yeah, it's probably not even that. It's probably like 85 or something, but it's boiling hot.
Yeah, Sean, that's hot. You're not used to it. That's hot.
So, really quickly, Sean, do you guys have air conditioning in a lot of places, or is it this is so unexpected we rarely, if ever?
Yeah.
So that's a lot New England, right? Where it's rare to find places that have AC, and then with temperatures this summer, it's either been 95 degrees or it's been pouring rain, really no in between.
Yeah, no, I mean, mostly it rains a lot. It does hit 30, 35, which is in the high 90s, I guess, in the summer for about a week, but mostly it's overcast and rainy. But, as I say, if it's not raining, it's not training. So, it makes us tougher, I think.
Nice. Well, let's go into a little bit of our weekend race recap just briefly before we get into the important stuff of the podcast. But Ryan, we had a couple of races that went on this weekend that were up on the website. You want to go ahead and talk about those?
Yeah. So, as we covered off in our weekend wrap up, we had first and foremost, it was Norseman weekend, and it was really kind of shocking that we were one of the few endemic media sites to actually put anything up about Norseman. And it was really kind of a shame how drowned out it seemed to get, just with how busy the weekend calendar was this year, especially with, someone like Sebastian Kienle deciding in his retirement tour to choose to go and race there. And he finished second, a really strong performance. Speaking of weather and everything else, Mother Nature really kind of ruled the roost at Norseman this year. No mountaintop finish for anyone due to all the storms and conditions up top. So they did the quote unquote short finish down in the valley, but really astounding performances across the board. And the thing that I took away from it that Kienle had mentioned was just how much he wished he had done stuff like that earlier in his career. And I think that's something that, in general, we, as triathletes, as endurance sports people, can really kind of take to heart, where we need to do more of that sort of adventure style thing rather than kind of, your traditional sameness that you get out of choosing to race kind of just I hate saying a standard Ironman, but there is a standard, right? You know what you're going to get yourself into with kind of a typical Ironman event.
You mean the stuff that Sean only does?
No. Sean had plenty of adventure associated with choosing to do that.
Technically, I've actually never done a triathlon organized one ever, not even a sprint.
That's what I mean.
Not done an Ironman.
Yeah, Sebastian was like, I'm going to do these crazy things. And I was like, I do that all day.
Yeah.
And then, kind of the bigger, pro event was the PTO US Open, which, phenomenal racing. Jan Frodeno proving that, once again, don't piss that man off, because you're going to have a bad time if you do that. And, we saw kind of Taylor Knibb with her performance on the weekend, another relatively dominant showing. The quality of racing that the PTO puts together, like the actual professional event, in part because you're drawing from the top end of their own rankings. And yes, take issue with the way that they generate those rankings and, how they determine what gets what for points and everything. But the actual racing itself is really kind of outstanding.
Yeah, I agree. They are 100% achieving what they're trying to do, and that is get the best athletes at the time to show up and race against each other and put it on broadcast. Like, that's
like,
definitely, I feel like, the new mission of the PTO.
And, unfortunately, right, like from a broadcast perspective, the broadcast itself is not extraordinarily different than any other triathlon broadcast, right? Like that's the fundamental problem, where it's like the racing itself is great, which is going to appeal to a geek like our audience, right? Like the kinds of people. But if you're trying to create more excitement and appeal to kind of a broader sports audience, like it's not enough to have the broadcast, be as, good enough, right? Like it has to be to a higher level, and it's unfortunately not there yet.
Okay, but real quick, and I don't want to get on a tangent because we're not here to talk about the PTO, but if you can answer this question in 30 seconds or less, answer it. If not, we'll talk about this another time. What else can they do? It's triathlon.
So it is a combination of, you probably need a more professional set of announcers to start off with. And that's not like knocking anyone who did anything, but like it needs more structure. They still need more cameras than what they had on offer, because you need to be able to show stuff like Jason West moving through the field. And you need to have better graphics on screen and a better packaging during the bike, which is kind of like the draggy part of the broadcast. Like, spend the money on the pre-prod stuff, all the hype videos and everything else, put together packages that you can run during the bike, which will also take some of the lift off of your broadcasters to try and carry the broadcast.
Okay. I agree on all those points except the announcers. I think no matter where you go, I think that they've got some of the best announcers that they're going to have with the history and knowledge base of triathlon.
I think Mirinda in particular has done an outstanding job across any race that she's done this year.
Yeah, she does a phenomenal. I mean, and even Jack Kelly, as much as I cringed at some of the things that he said, does a really good job. And you're not going to find anybody that knows more about athletes than he does.
I thought Jack showed the ability to improve over the course of the 2 days. I thought
It's also his first time. Like he's
I thought particularly on the women's day, he did a good job.
It would be bad.
But more importantly, right, like the USAT numbers for that combined festival, like that's the most important story coming out of Milwaukee, is just how many people were racing age group nationals this year.
Yeah.
They had the number that they touted was over 6,000 athletes. I thought that doesn't sound quite right. I asked. They had more than 6,600 individual so they had more than 6,600 registrations. They had more than 5,400 unique individuals register for races, which is still a huge number. right?
It is,
Like,
yeah. But I don't know why they have to do that. Like, why do they have to feel like they have to fudge the numbers? Like, because they do that with races too. Like USAT is known for that, where they just feel like they have to fudge the numbers to make it look better than what it is. It's weird. Sean, did you watch any of this stuff just out of curiosity, or do you just
No,
not care?
yeah,
Because
no, I do care a lot. My headspace is nowhere. I've not had 5 seconds to sit down and do anything. To be fair, so I would have liked to have been able to catch up. My first priority on finishing the 105 was watch the Tour de France, and I managed to not get any spoilers. I managed to watch it start to end, and I genuinely thought Pogacar had won. I was convinced.
shut
So
up.
so I've genuinely had no clue who had won. The only spoiler I did get is that I knew Cav had crashed out, and that was gutting. I was like, damn it, because he's en route for the record. So that was my guilty sort of 45 minutes per stage was the highlights, and I watched that last week and got that done. And then it's just been back to real life, changing nappies and doing the school run and things like that. So, yeah, I've not had 5 seconds, to be fair.
yeah, how excited was your wife when you were done?
Well, the running joke now is I did 105 full irons, and now I'm doing 105 days of ironing. So she's got me fully working around the house, and deservedly so. I mean, she solo parented for 3.5 months, and we've got a 4-year-old and a 22-month-old. So it's full on, and she's self-employed as well. So not only was she had to sort of do her own work, she was looking after the kids solos, and so I owe her a lot, really.
I think we need to have her on the podcast. I think at the end of the day, she's the real hero here.
Oh, absolutely.
Well,
I mean, we were thinking she might see if she could do Iron 106 next year. She was like, right, that's it. I'm going to leave you with the kids for 3.5 months. See how you like it.
Oh, yeah.
But
Sean,
Eric, that kind of goes to the conversation we had last week about, how hard on race day, right? Like spectating and your support system has and working an event. And, she had it 105 days in a row.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. I mean, I'm doing an Olympic distance triathlon this weekend, and my wife's coming out to watch, and I'm a little nervous that it's going to be too much for her. Where she's going to be like, yeah, it's, because I haven't raced since we've been married. So, it's tough, and Sean, what is your wife's name?
Caroline, yeah. So Caroline is my rock, and I won the life lottery, the wife lottery as well with her, and couldn't have done it without her. And even before I started this, I said, right, if it's too much, I won't do it. I'll find something else to do. But she knew how much I wanted it because it was the 4th category of world record I didn't have, and it's the one I needed to get the sort of the Grand Slam, the all 4. Then the 4 being a world's first, a world's furthest or longest, a world's fastest, and then the most of something. And I had a record in the other 3, and I just needed this one. So so she knew how important it was, and she was super supportive from day one. Other than the first conversation was like, don't be an idiot, that's impossible. But after that, I was like, no, it's totally possible. I definitely can do it. And then she was on board,
Yeah. Well, Caroline, from us and Slowtwitch and the rest of the community, we salute you. Hats off. Thank you for supporting this man.
Yeah, no, I'll tell her that. Thank you
so,
very much.
okay, so you had 3. You had 3 world records, and you wanted the 4th.
Yeah.
Like, talk to us in the audience a little bit about what inspired you, because James Lawrence did it. And, I remember, one of your posts was giving, props to him about how he inspired you. But give us a little bit of information about what inspired you to do it and really because I know you tried it earlier in the year and it didn't go as well.
Yeah.
And that's first when I really started to notice you as an adventurist. was when you were trying it again, and I was just like, oh, I'm gonna watch this, you know. And then I was really bummed when it didn't work out, and then you went and did some other crazy stuff, and then you put your, you know, hat back in the ring and you went for it. So
Yeah, so I mean, it all started off. So the three records I got the third one. So the first one I got was the first person to swim the length of Britain. It's 900 miles coastal swim. It took me 135 days, and it was the first time I got one of the three records. I actually didn't realize there was a fourth category until after I'd done these three. So the three, I called them the three Fs: the first, furthest, and fastest. So I got the world's first in 2013. I then got the world's furthest, where I did the world's longest continuous triathlon. So the record was 3,500 miles by, I believe, a woman in Mexico. And then I did a 4,200 mile continuous, and I did it fully self-supported. So even the swim, I had to swim with a raft, which I had all my kit in. So I had my casual clothes, my tent, my sleeping bag. And it was also a coastal swim. So I'd swim along the coast, go to shore, camp up in a bush, go back out the next day and just kind of leapfrog. And that was a 120 mile swim of the 4,200 miles continuous, which, because my bike leg was a bit shorter, it was almost a quad decker continuous, which no one had ever done before, but technically it was a triple decker continuous, really, because it was 3,500 on the bike, 820 run, 120 swim. So that was the second one. Then the third one was the fastest record, which I attempted again. That one took me 2 attempts. So it was the fastest to cycle across Europe. And Europe, according to Guinness, was the edge of Portugal to the Ural Mountains in Russia, where Russia, because half of Russia is Europe and the other half's Asian. And there's a town called Ufa. So that was 4,000 miles. I did that in 24 days and some change. So this was 2018. I'd got that record. And then I was like, oh, man, I've done all three now. What am I going to do next? And it was sort of like, in my head, it would take me a lifetime to get all three. But so I got all three by the time I was 38 or whatever I was then, 37. And then I'd obviously heard about James doing his 50 in 50 states. And I thought of potentially doing 100 back in 2018. So I lived in a place called the Lake District in England. And I came up with a route. I was going to swim in the lake and then cycle down to the flat areas in the south and then come back to Coniston and then run up and down the side of the lake twice. And that would give me the marathon. I mean, I now know it would have been a terrible route and it wouldn't have worked, but I only know what I know now because of what I've done. But at the time I thought I could make it work. But then, I got married, had some kids, and then COVID came, and I sort of parked the idea. And there was also another idea I was going to do, which, again, COVID killed that idea. And I kept postponing that one and postponing it. And then eventually, come late 2021, that's right, I thought, right, I'm just going to park the other idea for years now. Let me revisit some of my other ideas. And I got my little black book of silly things to do. And it just jumped at me again. I was like, oh, man, this has my name written all over it, looking at my CV. Plus, I then discovered, oh, actually, it's also a fourth category because I couldn't put it in one of the three Fs, which is the most of something. And then I was like, right, well, this is it. So it was December 2021. And I'm very impatient, and it's to my fault. And it's partly the reason I failed the first time, because the latest I could do it in the UK with weather was probably July, middle of July. So I gave myself as much training window as possible and attempted it. I think I started around the 12th of July, somewhere there. But yeah, unfortunately, I came off the bike on day 5 on that one, and my left leg stayed clipped into the pedal and just gave me some sort of severe tendonitis, which eventually made me miss the cutoffs. I just had no pace anymore. It was excruciating pain, and it was so early on. I think had I been on day 80, people always say, "Oh, what if that happened on day 80?" I probably would have just completely immobilized the leg and just walked, power walked. But for it to happen so early on, just wasn't. I didn't make the cutoff, so it was game over. And once you don't make the cutoff, that's it, really.
Right. So you kind of two follow-up questions off of that. So first, you talk about your little black book of ideas, right? Like, where did that come from? Like, what inspired you? What kind of drove you to come up with some of those ideas?
So for me, it's got to be a chase. So I've sort of explained this in the past to people, that I've got two distinct characteristics in myself, and one is I'm a monkey, and the other one is a terrier. I'm these two animals, and I love being a monkey when I'm a monkey. I like to break things, try new things, learn new things. I have a million hobbies the whole time. When I'm doing a project, or even little things like when I'm doing DIY in the house. Most people would go, right, I'm painting the room today, and then they'll paint the whole room and get it all finished. Whereas I'll paint a wall, and then I'll be like, no, I'm bored of painting that wall. I'll paint another wall tomorrow, but I want to do the skirting now. I want to fix the lamp, the light shade. That drives my wife, insane, really. But then I get frustrated if I don't have something to chase, and the terrier needs something to chase. And I've discovered that I just need these big, long, really long things that take weeks and weeks and months to do, and it satisfies the terrier in me the most when I have all those things to chase. And I'm a better person. I'm a better husband. I'm a better father. I feel better because I eat better. I'm healthier. I'm fitter. It's just the whole package that comes with me chasing something that seems really far out of my reach, and really difficult. It's my oxygen now. I sort of, it's easier for me to do it than not to do it, if you know what I mean. And
Yeah.
it took a while to work that out. And yes, it's miserable and horrible while I'm doing it, but it's still better than trying to sort of lead a normal life, as it were, because that depresses me a lot.
And, it's interesting you say that, because Ken Rideout, when we had him on the podcast, said pretty much the same thing in terms of like what drives him in terms of training and getting stuff done. And he's like, I need that time. I need to do these things because it makes me a better person. It makes me a better partner, husband, father. Like it satisfies something, and it makes you a better person. And so it's interesting to hear you mention that similarly, right? The other thing that I think you were mentioning, right, about how like on day 5, the leg problem, and had it been further into kind of the challenge, you would have done something differently. One of the things that came up on our forum when talking about kind of your most recent run through is this idea that like people will actually get stronger as they go through these, because there's just that different wiring in a true ultra athlete where you're actually able to still recover on a daily basis and improve throughout the attempt.
Yeah. If you do everything right, then that is a possibility, and that's the goal. The goal is to sort of tick every single box, and there's 10 boxes, right? So there's 10 pillars of endurance. One is planning, one is experience, one is health, then there's food, hydration, muscle management, sleep, motivation. There's one I'm missing out. Right, where are we? Planning, experience, health, food, water, sleep, muscle management, motivation, experience. Did I say experience? And community. Those are the 10. Now, if you tick all of those boxes every single day, you will pretty much get to a point where you'll have enough recovery time to repeat it the following day. Now, if you don't, and you could be down on one or two of them, you land up on the back of the wave. And that was happening to me on the first attempt, where, because I didn't pull the plug on day 5, I did another 2 days. I did 6 and 7. But because the muscle management was out, and maybe my nutrition was a bit out, and I just didn't quite tick all those boxes, I was on the back of the wave and then could never recover enough to do a decent enough time. And that was what I've really focused on this attempt, was to get fit enough and fast enough and tick all those boxes of every single one, that I was able to do quick enough time to be able to sleep the 8 hours. And for me, that was the dream, the goal. So that almost the one thing I focused on the most was trying to get 8 hours sleep. And it happened sort of around day 20, I guess. I think I need to go back and look at my notes. But it was somewhere around there where I started to get 8 hours sleep. And the main reason I did that is I got rid of my physio, my daily physio. So I was doing daily physio for the first 4 weeks or so. And I realized I was losing an hour of potential sleep just in physio time. So I made the bold move to get rid of daily physio and only have weekly physio on a Sunday. And immediately I felt amazing. That extra hour's sleep was just a game changer. And actually I woke up in a better place than having the physio that I didn't need. There was times where I needed physio, absolutely, and I couldn't have survived the first week without Simon because there was some weaknesses and some tightnesses that would have potentially led to tendonitis or a potential stress fracture and things like that. But once you get to a point where you actually don't need it, and your body is really good at recovering. And if you look at Christian and Gustav, they don't do any physio. They don't do any massage, no ice baths, no sauna, nothing. They just sleep twice a day. And for me, that was one of the big priorities was the sleep thing. But you're right. You get stronger and stronger and more robust. You may not get fitter. You may not get faster, but you get to a point where as long as you're not going harder and harder and harder, if you're keeping the same tempo, you almost get to a point where getting injured becomes really highly unlikely. It's that first 2 weeks where's the danger period, really.
So you have a toddler at home. How the hell did you get 8 hours of sleep?
Yeah, well, we joke now. I was getting more sleep during Iron 105 than I am now. I was in the back room, and I would lock the door, earplugs, eye mask, and I'd fall asleep instantly, pretty much. Yeah, so I was pretty lucky there. They may have been trying to get in, I don't know, but I had the door locked.
No, my daughter had a sleep regression at that age, and it was just like if I slept 4 hours a night, it'd be an absolute dream. So I just unbelievable, right?
Yeah.
But I mean, sleep is the absolute key, right? When I'm coaching athletes, the big thing that I wind up doing is, if something is super planned and structured, I'll say as much, but I'll give optional workouts, but the note will be if you got less than X amount of sleep per night, which changes based on whomever it is, don't do the workout. You need to rest and you need to recover. And that's such a key discipline that I think people lose sight of. It's really emphasized when you're doing something like you did, right? Where it is absolutely the key to be able to wake up and do the next day. But I think a lot of quote unquote average endurance athletes really lose sight of sleep is king.
Yeah. Yeah.
It was something that you talked about most too on your, it was, I remember on your daily posts, it was whether or not you slept good or whether or not you didn't sleep good. That was kind of like this theme that I kept watching and reading. It was, you were keeping your weight on, you would give an update on, how the day went and whether or not you slept good or not.
Yeah. No, it was huge.
It's fascinating. Yeah. And I want to learn more about your food intake, like what food you ate during the day, and then what you did as soon as you were done. So let's talk real quick about food. Talk to us about your fueling during the actual day itself.
Yeah, I mean, I got into a pretty specific routine, probably around day 30 even. Up till then, I was trying loads of different things and seeing what worked. I actually pre-made 100 blended meals because I find it easier just to drink and then it's less digestion on me, right? So I was making spaghetti bolognese and loads of things with loads of different veg and and carbs, and sweet potato and rice and just all in this blended thing. But honestly, like by day 5, I couldn't stomach it. It tasted so good when I was making it, and then I just got flavor fatigue, and I never touched them for another 95 days. So I've currently got 90 frozen meals in my garage that I need to work my way through. So by the end, I pretty much ate the identical thing every single day. It mainly was around meats, milks, nuts, and fruit. I had very little vegetables, which I regret, but I sort of got into a place where I thought, well, this is sort of working. I don't want to change anything. But I wish I'd had more veg, definitely, 100%. I think I would have felt better. But I was sort of still doing okay. My times are still good. I would have grains, though. So first thing I did when I wake up in the morning, I would have a big 1 liter of porridge, quite watery porridge, so I could drink it, and chia with some butter, honey, and salt. And so my alarm went off at 4:29 a.m. I'd be in the car at about 4:39, 4:37, and get to the pool at about 9 minutes to 5 and be in the water at 1 minute to 5. But so in that period, I would down this liter of oats, chia seeds, butter, honey, and milk and salt. Then in the pool, I'd then also have as I arrived at the pool, I'd have a caffeine shot, and then that'd make me go straight to the toilet, which is good. So I got my toilet out of the way before the swim, because my bike leg.
I love how it's all off numbers too, like 9 minutes before, 1 minute before. Like,
I needed to be. If it was vague, I wouldn't take it seriously. And my original alarm was 4:33, but I found I was getting in the pool at like 1 minute past 5, and that really annoyed me. I just needed to. If I got in at 1 minute to 5, I felt like I'd won the day. Even though really it didn't matter in the end of the day, but still, like psychologically, it was good for me to get in 1 minute before 5. I think I got in at like 6 minutes to 5 once, and honestly, it was like the best day I'd ever had, because I got out the pool and I was on the bike before 6:30. I was like, I'm gonna have such a fast day, even though my time was the same at the end, but still, like psychologically, it was a win. So I had my caffeine shot, and then in the pool, I would have athletic greens, the AG1 stuff. Which I would have it in not too much liquid, probably 400 mils of liquid, because by now my stomach was quite full.
Why you didn't need vegetables?
Well, yeah, probably. So, there is a lot in there. I mean, they weren't a sponsor or anything. I just bought it because I've used it. I hear everyone talking about it. So
product. It really is a good product.
We're
not affiliated with them at all. We wish we could be, because it's a really good product.
Yeah, so I did that, and then I would have some fruit on the side of the pool. I would then my swim was usually around an hour 20, including I'd often sometimes need the toilet halfway through the swim as well, which was annoying. And then around an hour 20 on an average day. T1 was 10 to 15 minutes. So again, I was really trying to hustle the transitions, just so that I would buy myself more sleep. Everything was just to buy myself more sleep. And then on a good day, I was sort of, if I could get on the bike for around 6:30, 6:35, I was pretty happy with that. Then on the bike, I would have loads of little mini cheeses in my sort of bento box, and a couple of sort of salami sausages type thing, and a couple of bars, like oat bars and things like that. They varied a little bit. And then in my bottles, I'd have 2 bottles on the bike, and I would replace them at every feed station. So I'd end up I tried to have about 6 bottles on the bike, but it was often only around 4 or 5. And in one of the bottles was some electrolytes, and then in another bottle was some carb mix, which was about 600 calories or 500 calories in each bottle. So I was getting about 1,000 calories from there, and I would replace those 2 or 3 times. And then at each feed, I had 3 feed stations on the bike, and there I would have religiously a banana, a packet of crisps, a whole bunch of fruit, and then a rice pudding. I don't know if you get that in America. Rice pudding. I'd have one of those. I would then have, and then every now and again, I'd have a bit of bit of meat as well. Not a lot of meat, but a tiny bit of meat, usually with lots of fatty type meat. What else would I have? Some Welsh cakes. I have a yeast intolerance, so I can't have any bread or any baked goods. So, which was annoying because there was quite a lot of things I couldn't eat that I would have wanted to eat. And then I would down at every feed stop. I'd down probably like 200 mils of full fat cream. And if I did that at every feed stop, it was sort of free calories because that was super high in fat. I would get in a little tub, the size of a coffee mug, was nearly 2,000 calories, and sometimes I'd have more. Sometimes I have the big tub, which, again, is less than a pint glass. And that was 3,000 something calories. And that was what I used to call my insurance calories. If I didn't do enough eating in the day, at least I wouldn't waste loads of weight. And yeah, it probably wasn't giving me the best energy and it wasn't the best fuel for performance and everything. But it's probably one of the biggest reasons I didn't lose any more weight. I lost 3 kgs throughout the whole time, and I lost it almost in a dead straight line, a kg a month. So what's that? 2 pounds a month, pretty much. So I lost 6-7 pounds over the whole thing, which I'm pretty happy with. I expected to lose more, but I hoped to lose less. That last couple of pounds, I would have been nice to not lose because I lost muscle with that one. And then I would finish the bike, and then again my bento box would be replaced with cheese mostly in between each feed station. Get to the run, have some fruit and some more rice puddings and a banana and a packet of crisps again. And then on the run, I would mostly just have the calories in the bottles, the carb powder and the electrolytes, and then some plain water as well. And then I'd have 2 meals which were pasta based, and they would vary. Once I found a flavor I could sort of tolerate, I just ate that until I couldn't eat it anymore, and then I'd change flavor rather than changing flavor each day. That seemed to work better for me. So I'd have like carbonara for like 2 weeks, and then one day I'd just be like, I can't stand carbonara. Let's go to spaghetti bolognese. So I did spaghetti bolognese for 2 weeks, and then I was like, let's go back to carbonara. And that meant I could keep the eating. And again, it needed to be watery, so I could almost like drink it with a fork, and then down the last bit of liquid at the end. Again, having lots of bananas, lots of fruit, a bit of cheese. So that would take me to the end of the run. And then it was annoyingly, and I just couldn't get away from it. I live in the hills, so I had to cycle down to the flat area and then run in the flat area. And it was a 25 to 30 minute drive back home each night. It was annoying, but it did give me the chance to write that social media update every day, which was nice. I'd get home, I would have my evening meal, which was just whatever Caroline was cooking for her and the boys. And I'd have that blended mostly because I've, again, struggled to chew. Whereas if I had whatever it was, genuine, like anything that I had roast dinner blended, so that was liquid, down it, straight into a shower, wash all my sun cream off me, then get in a really hot bath, sort of scalding hot. I tried ice baths during this, and I found I just got cold, and it interfered with my sleep a little bit because I had that excitement you get from an ice bath. Yeah. It was too late in the day to have that in my system, really. So I stopped doing the ice bath and just went with a hot bath, and a hot bath really fixed me. I got out of the hot bath, felt amazing.
Was there anything in the bath? Was there like salt or Epsom, or was it just water?
Yeah, so soap? I had Epsom salts in chunks. I'd sort of forget, so I'd have a big bag and I'd use it for a week, and then I'd run out. And then every day I'm like, right, I need to buy Epsom salts. And then I'd just forget. And then I'd go 3 weeks without it and eventually be like, I need to get Epsom salts. I'd be sitting in the bath on Amazon and just buy some Epsom salts. Then I'd have another week and then forget for another 3 weeks. So it was sort of 50% of the time I had the Epsom salts. I don't know if they worked or not. I don't think I was in the bath long enough for the Epsom salts to have worked, if anything, because you sort of read the label and it's like, 20 minutes. Well, I don't have 20 minutes. I'm going to sleep. But it definitely just helped my legs. It got rid of all the pain before bed. Because before I was doing the bath, because originally in the first week, I didn't even shower. I came in, ate, had physio, and just fell into bed. and thought, oh, it doesn't matter because when I'm in the pool, I'll wash all the salt off. But it just stayed in my sheets. The problem with that is that my skin couldn't breathe, so I was having real bad sweats overnight. I had a really high heart rate in that first week. My average sleeping heart rate, I was wearing a Whoop to start with. My average sleeping heart rate was 89 overnight. It was just super high.
Yeah.
Burning calories too.
Just calories.
Just sweating.
Exactly, yeah.
You're just losing everything.
And it was just the cortisol levels were high. It's that famous Mike Tyson quote: "It's like everyone has a plan until I punch him in the face." So, and that's what it felt like. I just got massively smashed in the face. I stopped wearing the Whoop because every morning I'd wake up and it said it gives you that recovery percentage. It was like 1%, like every day. It's like I'm basically dead. So I got rid of that.
This is useful.
Yeah, I'm like, this is just stressing me out.
So funny. It's so funny you mentioned that because I've got this Garmin device that I'm getting ready to put a review out for, and it's got that how many hours you need to recover, and I went and did like a somewhat longer ride for me, and it was like you need 70 hours to recover, and all I could think about was like how annoying would that be for like the guys at the Tour de France to like see that. Right, it's just like every single day.
Yeah, well, I was getting that on. So at the end of my swim, I mean, on the end of the swim, the Garmin told me I needed it wasn't too bad, like 72 hours, and then the end of the bike, it was like 3 days, and then by the end of the run, it was like 5 days or whatever. I was like, well, that's not gonna happen.
Every day for it.
Yeah, on a good day.
That's why you're so tired.
Yeah, I mean, on a good day, I had 10 hours. I think that the most I had between two was 10 and a half hours, which I thought was amazing. Like I was super happy with that.
Yeah.
And I think if I hadn't had I originally thought 15 hours would be my bare minimum to get the recovery in, but it turns out it was 14. I think the days I did 15 hours, I nearly missed the cutoff on day 2 because I picked up a knee injury on day 1 because of a saddle height issue, because the new bikes I got had shorter cranks, and I just totally forgot that I asked for shorter cranks. So I did my saddle height, it was totally off, and did my knees in on day 1. And I even had a conversation with my wife and said, look, this injury may DNF me on day 20. Should I pull the plug now on day 1, recover for 4 weeks, and then start again fresh, rather than potentially still DNFing down the line? And she's like, no, because you'll probably just pick up another injury anyway, so you just soldier on, you idiot. You're in this now. I was like, yes, ma'am. And she talked sense into me, and my physio's amazing, and we taped it and strapped it, and I wore knee patella straps for the whole thing on the run. And so I was 16 hours 55, I think, on day 2. I've published all the times on my website. And then 16 hours 45, I think, on day 3. So it was really pushing the boundary, really not getting anywhere near enough recovery. But then on the flip side, I really enjoyed the hustle. Every day I was like, right, can I be 5 minutes quicker? And then 5 minutes quicker. And actually that sort of gave me something to focus towards. And then eventually around whatever day I got stopped doing the physio, my times were really good, and I was feeling strong, and I had no niggles, and I was pretty. Everyone says, "Oh, which one were you the strongest at?" I think I was pretty average at all of them. I think my swim time, if you put me in a pack, I'd be middle of the pack. I think the bike, I'd be middle of the pack, and the same with the run. So again, I was happy that I didn't rely on one discipline to get me through the day. I evenly spread my training across all 3, and I think that paid dividends in the long run. And the fact that I've done a lot of multi-day running. I've done 1,000-mile self-supported run before, 820-mile self-supported run, a couple of 200 or 300-mile runs back to back. So day after day, all hovering around a marathon a day. So I've never done the sort of the long stuff. I've done 90K, I think is my longest on my own. But yeah, so I'm very experienced, and that's one of the 10 pillars, right? It's experience in back to back, both swim, cycle, and run. Yes, granted, I hadn't ever sort of done them all on the same day, but at least the run one, and the run's the one that'll definitely DNF you. I was really confident that I could at least survive the run. My technique's mint. I used a guy called Shane Benzie, which is one of the best running technique coaches in the world. Goes to Kenya and works with all the Kenyans. When he filmed me, he was like, you know what, mate, you stop a little bit with your right foot. So I had all these sensors on. I brake a little bit too much with my right leg, but other than that, my foot placing's perfect. I don't heel strike. I don't toe strike. I'm not a 4-foot runner. I'm pretty good. The only thing I could work on is maybe my stride length, to be fair. But my cadence is good. So I was really confident on the run, which was a good place to be, because that's the one that really can just throw everything off kilter,
Yeah. So talk to us a little bit about the support group. Like, who were you responsible for waking yourself up in the morning? Was it your wife? Like, who drove you around? Like, because you just talked about how you had to, for the run, you had to drive 20 minutes down, go to the run, and then drive back. Like, who did all of that stuff? Because one of the things that I noticed is you definitely had a support group, but it wasn't huge. Like, and talking to you and listening to you, you did a lot of this stuff, like just kind of yourself, and like it's like, what was your dinner? It's like, whatever my wife and kids were eating, I just stuck it in a blender and got it down.
Yeah,
So,
no, I mean, my sort of day crew was small, but they were amazing. Like, I really genuinely didn't have to worry about anything, and they were just behind the scenes, and they were happy to sort of be there. I had basically, on a day, I had 3 crew members. So from my first attempt, I soon realized that crewing is hard, and they're not.
Yeah.
There's no adrenaline for them. They're not eating as much as I'm eating. They're not as fit, and because I've trained hard for this. So to expect a crew person to do the same shift as me, the 4:30 a.m. to the 8:30 at night, is just unrealistic. And that's what I was trying to do on the first attempt. And that just didn't work. So what I did is I split the crew. So I had a morning crew and an afternoon crew, and then a social media guy who was actually one of my best mates. So Justin, he lives in South Africa, and I sort of knew that I needed someone who loved me personally. The other 2 just applied for the job. So there's actually 3, because there was 2 people who split shift the morning crew because they did 5 days on, 5 days off. I offered that to the afternoon crew guy, Phil, but he said no, he's happy to do every single day in the afternoon. And then Justin would do the full day, but he would only do Monday to Friday. So he'd get the weekends off to just recover and chill and do nothing. So in the mornings, Justin was staying with me in my house in the other spare room. And my alarm often didn't wake me up, so he had to come in and wake me up, and I was sleeping completely naked. So he had there was some awkward experiences where he's like trying to touch the bed and make sure it was my leg, wake up, Sean. So once my alarm goes off, he woke me up. He would then do my porridge as well in the morning. And the other reason I shifted my alarm from 4:33 to 4:29 is it gave me a minute in bed to wake up in a non-stressed environment. Because before, when it was 4:33, I would wake up and I'd be like, right, hustle, let's go into the pool, let's go. And I felt that wasn't a good way to start the day. So by moving it that 4 minutes, when he woke me up, I would then turn the light on immediately, take my earplugs out, and I'd just lie there and I'd just breathe a little bit. And then I would do a couple of leg over exercises to stretch my lower back. And then I'd wait for the microwave to ping, because that's when the porridge was coming out. I would then get out and I'd put on my now famous pajamas that I wore every day into the pool. And I'd go out and I'd do some nerve flossing. So I get really tight nerves, just the way it is. So I'd sit and do the nerve flossing on the edge of the kitchen table. So you dip your chin and raise your legs and point your toes towards you and bounce that on each leg. I'd do that for a couple of minutes. Then get my porridge and then hobble down the stairs, convinced that there's no way I could survive the day, but I knew that once I was in the pool, I'd be fine. So then Justin would take me to the pool. And then at the pool, one of the Chris's, they both randomly were both called Chris, who split the morning shift, 5 days on, 5 days off. They had already arrived at the pool at usually around 4:20 in the morning, we were really lucky. So it was a council pool, which is the way the system works in the UK. It's very rarely sort of privately owned public pools, other than in some very expensive gyms. So pools in the UK are quite rare to find, to be fair. But this was a council-run pool, which schools get to use and things like that. And I was just lucky that both the Chris's did swim coaching for some kids in the pool. So they were happy just to give us keys. So they literally just opened up in the morning, because normally they only open at 6 a.m. for masters sessions, Monday, Wednesday, Friday. So they gave us keys. So they had taken the cover off and put a lane out for me and got all my cycle kit ready and got all the nutrition ready behind the scenes. There was a lot of work that the crew did. It was really phenomenal. Yeah. So I would, again, get in the pool, do my lengths. While that was happening, one of the Chris's would get my bike ready, get all my kit ready. I'd finish the pool, go have a shower, quickly brush my teeth, because gum health, again, was super high on my priority. And again, that was part of one of the 10, was just health, gum health, so did that. Had a quick shower, then got into my cycle kit, and everything was ready to go. So my Garmin's were set up, my rear light was working and on and flashing. I genuinely just didn't have to think. The power meter was synced up. My heart rate monitor was synced up to my power meter. So I had 3 ways of recording each day. On the bike, it was a bike computer and my watch. On the run, it was 2 watches. And then the third one is my phone. And then on the swim, I wore 2 watches and I Instagram lived every swim to 4 people who were awake at the same time as me. And we also time lapsed.
I watched it a couple of times.
Yeah. It was interesting. I was always I'm like, who are these 4 people who are awake? It was always people in your side of the world, to be fair, or somewhere else, who were awake. And so I then, on the bike, the Chris's and Justin would then go to feed stations. So I had the same feed station. There's 3 feed stations, but it was all in the same place, because my bike leg was about 10 miles down to the beginning of 3 laps that I would do. And each lap was about, I think, 30 miles or so. And then I had about a 10-mile back to the run start. And then in the middle of that, it was sort of a figure of 8, is where the feed station was, which was good from a logistics point of view, because if I had a mechanical anywhere on the lap, the furthest point I could have been was 20 minutes for a crew member to come. And because I was running tubeless, I chose not to take any puncture repair or anything. We'd just sort of get the crew to drive to me, swap out a wheel, which happened twice. I only got 2 punctures in the 12,000 miles or whatever. So, and then also the other good thing is, by having a lapped course, people could join me for part of the day. Mm-hmm. They could just come and do 1 lap in the morning or a couple in the afternoon. Whereas if I had a long out and back, people would have been committed to the full day. So that means I had a lot of bike support during this, which was amazing. And then
I bet you that helped a lot mentally too, because it was just, it's essentially, it's 5 countdowns, right? It's the 10 mile out. Okay. Done.
Yeah.
And then it's lap 1 done.
Exactly.
Lap 2 done.
Yeah, exactly. And by the end, people say, "Oh, didn't you get bored?" But actually, no, because by the end, I knew where every pothole was. I knew where every corner was. And the downside is I had 75 potential come to complete stop junctions on the course, it really was. I mean, I had no other choice. It was literally on all 4 sides of this route I did were mountains or hills. And even this bit, I had 600 meters of climbing, which is still pretty low, but it could have been lower. It would have been nice to be around the 400. But so there's a lot of slowing down to about 5 miles an hour, pulling out of junctions. And all those spikes at junctions really took it out of me, because, you're doing 300 watts out of each junction, aren't you? And then it's just, you're poking holes in the bag, aren't you?
So, you mentioned all of the different devices that you were wearing and everything else, and having a ton of data at your actual fingertips. How much were you actually using that data, and how much of it was just like, I need to record this because I have to show that I actually did the damn thing?
Yeah, so first priority was just recording it to make sure that everything was on Strava and everyone can have a look at it and nitpick and do whatever they want. And and I didn't want there to be any buts, like, oh, he got the record, but he didn't have a heart rate monitor. That's suspicious. So I wanted to really just give as much data as possible to everyone and for me. But the two things I looked at the most were eventually my power, my normalized power on the bike. That gave me quite a good indication on how I would fare the following day. And then also my heart rate. So eventually I got to a point where I knew that if I just kept my heart rate below 120, which I pretty much did, at even on the spikes, so spiking at 120, hovering around 110 to 115, then I was going to be good. Like that was a sustainable heart rate. And then the same with the power.
Yep.
Pushing anything above sort of 130 on the power all day average. That meant the following day was much harder because I just didn't get the recovery. So it was better for me to take a 15-minute hit on time and just be slightly lower power to a point, because then if you go way too low on the power, then you're going to be too slow and then you don't get enough sleep. So I got to a sweet spot where
that also puts I was going to say that also puts into context that 89 heart rate when you were sleeping, just like how close to what you were trying to do to hold on to. Like, I mean, that's an incredibly high heart rate relative to the effort that you were trying to give while you were out and about.
Yeah, and that 89 was only the first week. It came way down. I mean, it never got to the 30s or 40s like it normally does now when I sleep. It was probably in the 50s though, because I was still fatigued every day. I was still potentially, depends how much I ate at the end of the run, which again was always the same thing, but always every day you're burning slightly more or less calories, depending on the effort. Because some days it was windy, and some days I had 10 riders with me, some days I had one rider with me, or none. So there was always a slightly different output on power and calories each day. And I just hope.
How many minutes do you? Oh, I was going to say, how many minutes do you think you gave up with the beard?
I gained minutes because I'm Samson. Basically. I think it gives me superpowers, so it's here to stay. And my wife's never known me without a beard, and she likes it. So I'm really baby faced under here, so I want to look old and haggard.
Hi.
You don't look tough. So real quick, just to rehash the power. So your goal on the bike was to never really average more than 130 watts. Is that correct?
Well, and I know that. I mean, that was the high end, really. So
high.
Yeah. I mean, the goal was sort of around 110 watts. Which, when I remember looking at James Lawrence's power data, I was like, man, he was doing a 5-hour 15 with 110 watts. I'm like, how is that possible? Like, was it a downhill course? But no, I mean, that's pretty normal. Even, did you see Tom Pitcock's power data for one of the stages of the Tour de France? He was doing 40k an hour, averaging 100 watts. So that became the, and also looking at James's data, I knew that was a sustainable power each day.
It's crazy how much more power is required to get up past, when you get into like the 20 miles an hour and above, and to get into that like 26, 27, 28. Like, it's just crazy how much more power you have to, because of the drag. Like, drag really starts to get into those high speeds. So, also James had he had a way bigger entourage than you did. Listening to you talk about like your day and your crew, it's impressive how dedicated your small staff was, and the consistency there. Like, I almost think that the consistency to your schedule is almost as impressive as the feat itself, because I mean, you were just like a metronome, every single day. And for you to be able to do that for 105 days without having anything happen to you. And it was the same with James, it was really, at the end of the day, it's, Can you physically do this? Probably.
Yeah.
Can you physically do this and not have something happen to you? That's where the odds are kind of stacked against you, right?
Yeah,
Where
absolutely.
and for you to be able to do that every single day without having some sort of thing, weird thing that like happens, where you trip, you fall, whatever, your wheel blows up, whatever it is, it's just those freak things. But like, that's where the odds start to play against you. And so it's, it's,
Yeah, and but my
I have
experience.
a new man crush here. It's crazy to
Yeah.
listen to you talk
Yeah, I mean,
about you did this.
yeah, I mean, I took all that stuff super seriously. I was like, when I go into anything, I'm like, what is gonna DNF me? What is gonna be a showstopper? I
Yeah.
call it. And so one was getting run over on the bike. That was a big one. I was on very, very public roads. I mean, in the 180K, I would say we passed on an average day, 300-400 cars, I would say. At least I think
Wow.
we would get overtaken at least by 100 or 200 cars every single day. So it was a very busy area, still fairly quiet roads, no big long roads where you're going to get massive lorries. But it's still people doing the school run, you know, people going to work and doing this sort of thing. So there was a big worry about getting run over. Luckily, the drivers, we had about 5 really close calls, but mostly the drivers were incredible, and I was really thankful that they were so patient, because I'd be causing a traffic jam at the same time every morning around Holt. So they were all pretty amazing there. So there was that one. There was having an injury that would DNF me, of course. Having someone crash in front of me, or me crashing, as you say. Luckily, there were no real fast corners. All the corners you had to, because they were so sharp and tight, and there's hedgerows, so visibility was terrible. You had to really slow down. There was that. There was illness, potentially getting COVID, or getting another type of illness. There was that could have stopped me. Another one was family bereavement, and I had those conversations. At what point do I give up if someone in my family, dies? And I eventually came up, and it's horrible to have to sort of make this call, but obviously, if it was my boys or my wife, I would definitely finish. But I had a chat with my sister and my mum and my dad, and with Caroline's parents, who live in the same village as us. Say, well, if something happens to you, what do you feel? And they were all like, you will 100% carry on. There's no point in you stopping, because we're gone. But I don't know how I would have felt had that happened. So luckily, nothing happened on that front. And then, as you say, just be consistent. And the crew, I just sort of didn't finish about the crew earlier. So my morning crew would finish at the beginning of the run leg, which is around 1 o'clock. And then they would go off, and then that's their day done. They had nothing to do with it anymore. They wouldn't hang around. They would go and live their lives. And that was important for me. And then Phil would do the afternoon crewing. So he would follow me on a bicycle for my run course. So he was literally next to me, making me drink stuff whenever I needed to. He was very methodical. He had he did this amazing spreadsheet with everything I was eating, and when I ate it, and when I went to the toilet, and how many times I went to the toilet. And I couldn't have done that without him. He was absolutely incredible. He would then also service the bike and get the bike ready for the 2 days later. So I had 2 bikes on rotation. So the bike that I used today would be rested tomorrow and serviced and cleaned and make sure everything was running sweet. And then I would use yesterday's bike the following for tomorrow, basically. And then I had a third bike as a spare backup, which I would then bring in every 3 weeks. Because, for example, one of the derailleurs got bent in the car one day because a box fell over on it. So that was one bike out of the question. So that went to the bike shop. And then I had the other 2 bikes. But imagine I'd had a mechanical on one of those bikes. Then at least I had that third bike as a spare backup. Right. So, again, it was, imagine DNFing because you run out of bikes. Like that just, I couldn't, because, when I went to a sponsor, a lot of them were like, oh yeah, well, you obviously need 2 bikes. I was like, well, actually I need 3 bikes. And they were like, really? Like, do you really need 3 bikes? I'm like, and then I explained this exact situation. Imagine I have a complete frame break on one of them, or it needs to go to the bike shop for a week, and then I have another crash on the second one. If I only have 2 bikes, I've got no more bikes. So I'd then be using one of my steel frame ones, or a hybrid, or a mountain bike. I mean, someone would have given me a bike, of course, but you just don't want to have that stress. So, again, it was just ticking that box on experience and planning for that. And then, the other thing I'm good at is just monitoring myself and turning up and pushing myself to the exact limit that I feel is sustainable forever. And that just comes with experience. My around the world cycle was 155 days, I think. My length of Britain swim was 135 days. My world's longest triathlon was 85 days. So I've been in this space of 100 days, quite a few times. And that, I think, if, being consistent and getting to that level where, yes, I maybe could have gone half an hour quicker every single day by stealing 5 minutes on the swim, probably 15 minutes on the run, and maybe 10 minutes on the 15 minutes on the bike and 10 minutes on the run. But would it have been worth it? Once I got to a point where I was doing 14 hours a day, then I didn't really need to hustle more, and I could settle on this super sustainable model that I created for myself. And then, yes, I didn't have a DNF injury, but I was still constantly monitoring everything. I had this hip thing, which came from... I have a terrible swim technique from when I swam the length of Britain, and also because I did the cheese rolling.
From when I swam the lake. I have a terrible swim technique just because I was born.
Yeah. Well, no, so... there's a couple of things that happened. I did the cheese rolling, which is this real famous thing in the UK where you chase a cheese down a hill for no other reason than to chase the cheese. It's been going on for about 200 years. Look at it on YouTube. It's crazy steep.
It's hilarious.
Yeah, it's hilarious. So I did that in 2009, and I dislocated my shoulder, ruptured the capsule actually on the inside. So my left shoulder's pretty weak. So I land up, when I'm tired, I drop this elbow. So I then have a massive over rotation, which I then was exacerbated when I swam Britain because it's a sea swim and it was coastal. I had quite big choppy waves near the shore. So in order not to drink salt water, I had to really over rotate to get proper air rather than trying to do the half mouth thing. That was never going to work in the conditions. And then also to stop neck chafe, I also developed an over rotation for breathing rather than turning my neck, because if I turned my neck, I'd get chafe. And then I did 900 miles of that, and it's quite hard to relearn a new technique now. So in the pool, I landed up again doing this over rotation, which put a lot of pressure on my lower back. I'm right arm dominant because I'm breathing on the right and pulling on my right, and my left shoulder's dropping. So I landed up getting a really tight right side of my lower back, which happened around day 60, and then that was quite an immediate knock-on effect to my hip and my glute and my longus, which is the one just above your VMO, sort of just inside of your quad. My IT band got tight, my hamstring got tight, everything. I just sort of moved around from one place to another on my right leg, and yeah, that was extremely painful from day 60 something on, which was annoying because I thought I'd dodged all the all the bullets on that, but yeah, I just had to do rehab. So literally, about 6 or 7 times a day, I was doing glute bridges and the Superman pose and some rubber band stuff during each feed station on the bike, and a few times on the run as well, just to strengthen up some weaknesses that had happened through, just a series of bad habits, I guess.
So, if I recall correctly, the original plan was you're going to do 102.
Yeah.
Right?
That's what I agreed with Caroline, 102, and then she's like, brilliant, I can deal with that.
So that's where I'm going with this. How'd that conversation of, I'm going to do a couple more of these things go? Like, at what point did you say, you know what, like, I want to push this just a little bit further?
It was like, I'm going to let the universe decide.
Yeah. So truthfully, because obviously I had numbers already, so there was this in the planning for it. a brain hack for me is to presume it's a done deal already, even before I start. And I put the systems in place to hack my thought processes into believing that that's 100% going to happen. And of course, it's very naive, but I have to do it. And one of the things was printing numbers beyond 102, so printing the caps and the race numbers. So when I was planning, I was going through online. I was like, right, well, what's a cool number after 102? Is I was like, well, 123. That sounds kind of cool. So I'll print numbers up to 123. But I didn't really think I would go on because I thought, well, once I've got the record, I've got the record. And also, I'm not really in the business of trying to make the record unbeatable for someone else. I have no interest in that. I lie. I probably have 10% interest. That's the yin and yang, right? There's 90% of me really would love someone else to have a crack at this, and I hopefully, the ego in me will be like, oh, brilliant. Well, I've obviously inspired someone, and I'll help them do it. But there's obviously 10% of me that goes, damn it, I'm not the best in the world anymore. But generally, for the most part, I would really love someone to have a crack at this at some point, and just message me on Instagram, and I'll tell you all the 10 pistons. Really, if you focus on those, you'll be halfway there. And then, so when I was sort of getting into the 90s, and then coming to the end, it was sort of like, I was trying to work out my emotions, and the best way I can explain it now is, imagine you have a job that no one else in the world gets to have, and no one else in the world has, and you have got that job currently, and it's blimmin' hard, and it's super difficult, but it's really rewarding, and the community that is around you and your colleagues, I call it, and these are just people on social media following me, and the riders and the runners and the swimmers that would come and join me, they're all amazing, and you're having good banter, and there's, in Britain, the tall poppy syndrome is quite big in Britain, where if you sort of a bit above your station, people cut you down, and that usually materializes itself in the form of banter, and and it was great. People taking the piss out of me the whole time, like, sure, when are you gonna have a go on the front, mate, on the bike, and hurry up, can you run a bit quicker, I gotta get to the pub, and that was all amazing. So I sort of thought, I'm now trying to work out my feelings, and it was, do I want to give that up? I was feeling okay. It was tough, and it was a struggle, and I'm, right now I'm feeling like I'm, on death's door with fatigue, but I didn't want to give it up. And also I didn't want to give up myself. I didn't want to be the one that says, oh, I can't do this anymore, I'm stopping, because I felt that would be like me giving up, and I wasn't happy with that. So I spoke to Caroline before, and I said, right, where can I go up to if I because you've done a real hard job here. And I sort of threw some figures at her, and we sort of settled. She said, right, if you need to get to 110, I'm happy with that. But if you want to do more than that, like, you need a really good reason to go past 110. And I said, no, I think 110 I'd be happy with. So after 102, I knew I was always going to do 103, because I wanted to see what it would be like to do it not having to do it. Because I told everyone about 102. 102 was on the poster. Everything was 102. That was the record day. There was no reason to go on after that. So I was just interested to see whether my mind and body would actually be able to cope doing, 103. So I did 103. And then I was like, right, well, now I'm just going to sort of see how it goes. So I thought, right, let me let the internet decide on 104. So I put on Instagram, there was 71% of people hate me, obviously, because they said, carry on, mate, smash it. I was like, oh, okay, well, I'll do 104. And then I was going to get the internet to keep deciding, but I sort of thought they would just say go forever. So I thought that was an unfair thing. So I thought, right, from 105 on until 110, so I had those potential 5 to do, I'm just going to flip a coin. And if the coin tells me to stop, then I didn't make the choice. The coin made the choice for me, and then I'm cool with that. So on 104, I did the coin flip to see whether 105 should happen. And yep, it was heads I go, and it was heads. And then 104.
So what did you think about when that happened? Were you like,
no, I was quite excited. Yeah. And in fact, truthfully, I have thought about this. Had the coin been tails, I may have just gone, nah, I don't believe the coin. I'm just going to do it anyway. Or I would have done another flip, I think. Definitely for 105. I think definitely for because the day 105 was a Sunday. And I knew always on Sundays, it was always a good group of riders. And there was a lot of regulars who would come out and join me. And I knew it would be fun. And the roads are quieter because no one's going to work and things. So I think on that day, if it had said stop, I probably would have gone, no, actually, I'm carrying on. But then on 105, that was genuinely the one where I was like, right, I'm 100%, because it was Monday the next day. It was also going to rain, I think. But I would have carried on because I wanted to potentially get to 110. So I flipped the coin, and unfortunately it said stop. And actually, I was quite sad, to be honest, because it was over then, and then it was real. And then I was like, oh, got to change the nappies now, I guess. So, it was quite emotional, that last bit, really.
Yeah. When did your fatigue really start to set in? Like when did, you said, like, emotionally you kind of were like sad, but physically, when did your body come over and just be like, I hate you?
3 days after. So I finished on the Sunday. Monday, Tuesday, I was still actually feeling good. I was like, damn it, I feel good. Yeah, things always hurt in the morning, but once I sort of was in the pool, it was fine. So I did a couple of stretches, and I did a slow watt bike on that Monday. And I was like, I feel good. Tuesday, I felt good again. And then Wednesday, my body just went, we're finished now. Sweet. Shutdown mode. And then just, And then I thought that would be the worst of it. I thought I would feel fatigued, and then I'd slowly, each day by day, feel better. But actually, it's gone downhill still. So I feel way worse now than I did on that Wednesday, the day after. So, and I can't explain it. I'm sleeping well. I'm probably not eating as well, to be fair. It's been tough this last week, and my hips come back. The injury that I sort of was getting over by day 95 or so has now fully come back. And even sitting here doing this, I can feel it. So I'm seeing my physio tomorrow, see what that is all about.
Talk to us a little bit about your charity.
Yeah,
because it sounds like you had a tremendous success with that.
Yeah,
you've got to be stoked about that.
True Venture was incredible. We raised £100,000, and bearing in mind the charity only focuses in my local area. It's not a national charity. It's not a worldwide charity.
That's huge.
So we're trying to encourage more kids to get into sport and to stay in sport and love sport. Only 39% of kids in North Wales do sport outside of school. It's crazy low, and it's partly due to not enough volunteers, not enough coaches, not enough facilities, not enough equipment in facilities, and things like that. So the foundation are now going to put, I think, 50 grand of that into a pot, and coaches and clubs and venues and that can apply for some money, and we'll base it on, we'll go through, and it'll be just a grant process. So super stoked about that. And I'm going to be volunteering basically full time. We're all volunteers. The foundation was set up by a guy who just put his own money in a pot, and he was only going to do it as a one-off thing. And when the money was gone, he was like, well, I've done my bit. And then, but when I found out about that, I said, well, I'll raise money for the foundation, and then maybe together we can make this fully sustainable and roll forward. So I've been doing, 2 or 3 meetings a week with them now, going to a couple of corporates locally to see if they want to get involved with various things. So I was super, super excited. And I even got a letter from Prince William during this, which was pretty cool. Just came in the mail with a royal stamp, and it was just like, well done on your 102 triathlons, mate. Youth sports super high on our agenda as well as a royal family. Good luck with the rest of it. And his signature is just Willie. Just like Willie. I was like, that's brilliant. So I got
that's awesome.
Did you send him a money back with like a link to the charity where he could like pony up? Or
I think that the royal family have all their own things going on, but I am going to write a letter back to him and find out how I can actually make sure he gets it, which is half the issue, because he probably gets a lot of mail in the post to Kensington Palace. But no, it'd be good. I mean, he's the Prince of Wales, so it'd be nice to hopefully work with him on just encouraging. I don't think there'll be any financial gain to work with him, but if I could go to events where we're encouraging more kids to do that, I don't think the charity would be able to get any funding at all, but I think he's a good ambassador for youth sport, which is great. So hopefully we can, team up there somehow.
Wow. Sean, I'm blown away. I was impressed before I got on this podcast with you, and it's been really cool to listen to the unique things that I wasn't aware of just by following Instagram, and I'm sure a lot of people weren't really aware of. What's besides rest and changing diapers? What's next for you, man?
You know what? I need to.
Is there a 5 so you could do like a whole hand instead
I know.
of 4? Like what else?
If someone can work out if there's another category to endurance records, let me know. I really need to find a way of getting sort of value out of shorter events. So for me, if it's less than 2 weeks, I struggle to find the motivation to commit to it. And I really would love to be able to do, much shorter things. And I think I've never done a 100-mile running race, so I think I'm gonna have a crack at one of those. I'd love to start. I want to say competing, but there's not enough events of them on. But competing in continuous triple deckers. So that's a 7.5-mile swim, a 330-something-mile ride, and a 75-mile run. And there's a few of them around, but it'd be nice to get to a stage where I'm almost really competitive in the triples, because that's a short, it's 3 days really. It's not taking a lot of time out of my family life as a husband and father. So I think those are on my radar.
I was going to say Ultraman, right?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, things like that.
Wow.
So, yeah, I'm gonna have a think about all those. I think for the next couple of years and try and get. I'm a good age. I'm 42 now, so I'm quite a good age for those type of things. I think anything shorter, and I'm probably just not fast enough. So, yeah, I think that's on my cards. I was going to do a triple in 3 weeks' time, but how I feel now, it's just too quick. It's too quick. I think. Yeah, I'm sort of knackered.
Yeah. Well, Ryan, anything else?
No, I mean, the other challenge that came to mind is the one that Ken recently did. Send him to the Gobi Desert. Go do the race in Mongolia.
Yeah.
That'd be pretty cool.
Yeah. Again, there's all those long ones I'm definitely keen for, but whether Caroline gives me a pass for anything longer than a week now is unlikely.
It was a week, wasn't it? Like,
okay, well, a week's doable. Yeah. Okay, well, that's doable. I think Caroline will
filling in the black book for you.
Yeah, I know. Caroline will listen to this later and go like, "What? What are you doing? What's a week long? When is
Sorry. Blame me. It's my fault.
So Sean, we'll have all of this information in the link to the podcast, but just so that the people that are just listening to it, where can they find you? Where can they find your charity online? How can they contribute to it? Just talk about that really quick before we sign off here.
Yeah, I mean, SeanConway.com is where everything is. If you just search Sean Conway on Instagram, you'll notice the big bearded guy. Trueventure.org.uk is the charity, but also on SeanConway.com there's links to everything there. So I'm pretty terrible at social media. I'm glad it doesn't rule my life. I didn't do any social media during this. I got Justin to do it. I would write my daily blog in the car and send it to him. But I endeavor to put a bit more up on social media because people, I think, get something from it. So check me out on Instagram and all that jazz, I guess.
Awesome. Right on. Well, thanks for joining us today, man. You've definitely inspired me, and I'm sure you've inspired a bunch of people on the podcast today. So we appreciate it.
Yeah, well, it's an honor to be asked. So thank you so much, guys. Nice one.
Yeah, you bet. All right, everybody. Thanks for joining us on the podcast. We will be back next week, and we'll be doing our own normal thing here. So
get to talk about that gravel race.
That's right. Dang it.
Yes.